Hello and welcome, boys and girls. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that is recording guitars, because I know that a lot of you guys record guitars in your home studios, and we all know that there's a lot that can go wrong. I have come all the way to Bavaria to visit my dear friend and fellow producer V.Santura, who just happened to do a guitar recording session with no other than the mighty Behemoth. So he's just the right guy to give you some tips on how to get great guitar tracks at home. Welcome.
Hey, it's a pleasure being
on the channel.
On the channel, yeah.
On the show.
On the show, yeah.
You are not only a producer, you also play guitar, which helps for recording guitar tracks.
Yeah, I think so.
In Triptykon and Dark Fortress.
Exactly.
Right. Do you still see yourself as a guitarist when you're producing? Is that something that helps?
Yes, of course. I see myself as a guitarist, and I see myself, first of all, as a musician, I think. My gear is also my musical instrument, and for me, it's about music, always.
Same here, a musician who happened to become a producer as well, right?
Yeah.
But tell us about the session with Behemoth. Where did you record them? Which gear did you... I want to know everything. So.
Okay, everything.
Yes.
Ooh, you're asking for much. First of all, I did the session together with my good friend and colleague Michael Zech, and we did it at his studio. It's called Church of Sound,
nice. Which
is not very far from here, like maybe 35, 40 minutes by car.
Close to Munich, that is?
Closer to Munich, basically close to Erding.
Okay.
So it's relatively close to the airport, actually, to the Munich airport. And
is that where the Erdinger Weissbier comes from?
Exactly that.
That even some Americans might know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
famous place.
That place.
And that's why Behemoth came there?
I don't think so.
Okay, but they came there from Poland?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I did the sound check with the guys and with Michael. Michael did pretty much the actual tracking of the guitars. I did a lot of bass tracking. Not everything. I only did like half of the bass tracking because unfortunately when we were about to record the second session, I had fucking COVID.
Oh no, yeah.
On the day we were supposed to start, really like fever and everything, and even if I could have worked, it would have been like quite irresponsible being in the same room with the bass player, knowing that a few days later they would go on their big headlining tour in Europe. So there was no option, so I kind of missed that opportunity, unfortunately.
Okay, but you did like a traditional recording session, like no DIs that they recorded somewhere else, and reamping. It was just like real amps, real CADs, real mics.
Yes,
big studio.
mean, of course, we also track DI tracks just so they are there.
Yes.
In the case when they do the final mix, they still have the chance to reamp the guitars. I hope they won't do that because I mean we created the guitar sound together and everybody was happy with it. I think Nergal and Seth they were also satisfied with the guitar sound. I mean I think they would really speak up if they're not happy about it. So we also took like an entire day just for the sound check, or like a little bit more than a day. But I think it actually went pretty smooth and I like the sound a lot. And it's like, okay, we have the DI track, but we recorded just the traditional way with proper tube amps over cabinets with microphones, and every guitarist played his parts.
Okay.
Like almost everywhere. And
double tracked or quad tracked?
In total, it's quad tracked.
Okay.
So every guitarist basically double tracked
plays twice,
himself, and so we have 4 rhythm guitars.
Awesome. And did they bring their gear to the studio or?
Actually, they sent an entire truck with their gear from Poland, so everything we needed was there. We used some of their gear, and also some of the gear that you actually see here was being used. In the end, I think both guitarists actually played over a PV 6505 that went into my favorite Engel cabinet, which is an Engel Pro cabinet with vintage 30 speakers.
But not the oversized one?
No,
the normal
the
Pro.
normal one,
okay.
yeah. And actually, I just... we used the typical on-axis, off-axis Fredman
Fredman
style
thing, 257s.
miking. Exactly, yeah. And I used Triptykon MP2A as preamp. Each guitarist recorded over the PV 6505. So it's like you have it as a stereo layer, which is the symmetric sound.
Yeah.
And then every guitarist pretty much recorded over their own amp. So the second layer of amps is there's some variation.
Okay, and
so
different between both guitarists.
Exactly, and Nergal used his Bogner Überschall. It's the same amp he's using live.
Okay.
And for that we also used his Mesa 4x12 cabinet. Don't ask me which Mesa cabinet that is exactly, because I mean they sound different from every year.
Yeah.
And I think some of the Mesa cabinets sound fantastic.
Yeah.
Others I'm like, not for me. But that Mesa cabinet sounds really great. We tried it with the Angle first, but it just seemed to work better with the Bogner.
And I think especially if you quad track, it's always good to use different cabs because things just melt a little better, right?
And Seth, he used his Mesa Mark V.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that for some strange reason was working better with my Angle cabinet.
Yeah, it's a very different amp though. And by the way, just in case you wonder what we're doing here, we're not just here for fun and not just here to talk about Behemoth. We actually have already spent 2 days here. Doing a little mixing course together. So if you want to know how this guy gets his guitar tones and his mixes, we filmed an entire mixing course about his band that I really love, and that is Triptykon, founded by the legendary Tom from Celtic Frost.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. So if you're interested in seeing him mixing a great song, and you can download the tracks for yourself and have fun with them, check out the link below to the course. It's a lot of fun.
Hey, this is V.Santura. Today we're gonna dive into the world of Triptykon and mix Tree of Suffocating Souls. Watch me mix the entire song and get all the information about how to create an organic metal sound with plugins only.
I am your life!
I'm gonna show you every track, every plugin, and all my mixing techniques.
I am this time!
And of course, you can download the multitracks, mix the song yourself, and even win some really cool prizes. To get your hands on the course and the multitracks, click the link below. You can either purchase the course or become a member of Kohle Audio Cult, which includes tons of other amazing recording and mixing courses from fellow producers like Nolly, Gomez, Jens Bogren, or cult leader Christian himself. Get ready for some dirt and darkness, and welcome to the Triptykon mixing future.
No.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
I really enjoyed it.
The first time you did something like this, right?
It's the first time I did something like that.
He was very professional because
thank you.
Engineers, especially if they are like somewhere in the haunted Bavarian forest, they're not really used to talking about what they do while they're doing it, right? I mean, you're
exactly like usually you sit there and you just do your moves. You have your internal monologue basically, and to share that internal monologue or dialogue, whatever, to share that with the outside world needs a little bit to get used to. But honestly, I enjoyed it yesterday. I had a good.
Yeah, he did well because it's not that easy. One thing is to make good mixes, and the other thing is to be able to explain what you're doing. Anyway, enough advertising. Check out the link below. Amazing course, amazing song especially. A lot of fun to mix it. Have fun mixing it. You can also win some cool shit. All the information in the link below. Now it's time to talk about recording guitars again. What do you prefer? Like recording guitars yourself with a guitarist in the room if you do an album, or do you prefer just getting some DI tracks and skipping all the hassle of...
Honestly, both is absolutely okay for me. And if I'm brutally honest or super frankly, tracking rhythm guitars is not the most fun thing to do as an engineer.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, that's what you were saying, but I totally agree with you. Thanks for the honesty. No, I mean, sitting there for like 6 days straight, 8 or 10 hours per day, and just tracking rhythm guitars, it's also not like the most creative thing to do. It's basically, especially if you quad track, it's just one take after another, and also you need to stay focused a lot all the time, but at the same time you're a bit passive because you watch somebody else playing, and if there's trouble, you need to do troubleshooting and everything. I'm not angry if I get DI tracks and if I'm just doing the reamping. However, of course, it can also have like certain advantages if I record with a guitar player. Also, if the energy is good, then it can also be fun to do a recording session.
Probably that's the reason why Behemoth go to a studio to record with somebody else, because they want to have a feedback and they want to have a good atmosphere, and that is something that actually has an influence on both the performance and the tone, right?
Absolutely. And I think what a lot of guitar players that record themselves also underestimate a little bit is the ability to judge yourself. I think it can be very healthy when you have a professional that tells you, this is okay, no, this is really good, or no, this is not good enough, do it again. And especially also when you are good at editing or anything, and you understand what does the musician actually try to do, and you see they have a certain vision, but they can't do it in that moment. And you have the technical abilities to actually help them and play things they want to play,
to make them
but
better.
Can't pull off in that very moment. And I think a lot of people underestimate that a little bit because they think, oh, it's going to be so much more relaxed to just sit at home and record whenever I want to. And then the big danger of procrastination is also there, that they do it for 3 weeks or 5 weeks and get
5 years.
Yes, and get completely frustrated while you're here, you're doing it, you work with a professional that also takes away the burden of your shoulder to judge yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that can be an advantage. And of course, like when I record guitars here at the studio with other players, I always pay a lot of attention to the sound check. So first I make a good ballpark mix of the drums, and then I make a complementary guitar sound that should be as close to the final sound on the album. And because I think what you hear while you play, it affects your playing. And I think different amps react very differently. For example, I also noticed, let's take like two archetypes of metal amps, like a Mesa Boogie rectifier versus a PV6505. To sound good on a Mesa Boogie, like on pole muted stuff, you actually have to hold your hand different. You have to apply a bit more muting to get a tight sound. And if you do the same kind of hand positioning on a PV, it sounds like edgy, like
too thin and too, right,
exactly. So, for example, if you are recording your guitars at home and you record over a Mesa Boogie emulation or something, and I'm going to reamp it, it's actually healthy for me to know, because if I send it through my PV, I'm probably going to be like, it doesn't sound really good, so I'm going to try something else.
So what you're saying is it's an advantage to actually play through something that sounds close to the rig that's probably going to be used in the end.
Exactly. That would be the advice for everybody who still records at home, which is absolutely legit and totally fine. Still, while you monitor, try to get a sound that is at least close to what you want to hear, and one that you really feel comfortable with. Because if you have a weird sound that you actually don't even like, it will totally affect your touch. And when I reamp it, it might be difficult that it translates again exactly. I hardly ever had like really big problems with reamping. I remember one time I was working with a band. I'm not gonna tell which band because that wouldn't be fair, but the band was living close enough to my place so that they could actually come to my studio. So they decided to record their guitars by themselves with a DI box, and they made two technical mistakes. First of all, they had the ground lift switch the wrong way on the DI box. Just for everybody at home, like pretty much every DI box, if you actually use a DI box while you track, because very often you can just put your guitars in the instrument input, and that's like the easiest thing. But nevertheless, every DI box basically has a ground lift switch, and there's always like one position where it sounds better, where you have hum or no hum.
Right, it's so good, bad. It's very easy.
Just choose the one where you don't have hum, and I think we're good.
Don't use noise gaze when you record, because noise is really important, especially for the reamping later. And I have had the situation that people have like a really hard noise gaze, so they could not hear the hum and they could not hear the noise. But then once I reamp it, I can hear whatever, their CPU, I can hear their lamps, I can hear the neighbors.
That CPU thing is very good that you mentioned that. My computer, I don't know if you see it on the picture now, like my desktop computer is underneath my table, and if I record guitars and I'm getting too close with the pickup to the computer, it like, I don't even know what it is, if it's the CPU, if it's the hard disk or whatever, it picks up hum, and if I just turn myself a little bit or go like 20 centimeters further back, or then everything is clean. And it's also something that you have to take care of. And then like the other thing they kind of messed up, for example, on that DI box, I have like two different options of attenuation, like 20 dBs and even 40 dBs. And I think they had the 40 dB attenuation.
And then they cranked the mic pre.
Exactly. So all the noise there was, they basically cranked it up by 40 dBs. And those two things together, that was really, really problematic. And the guitar player, he was here, and we started reamping, and it was like, oh my God, yeah, I mean, I probably can fix it with some denoisers. And he was like, yeah, that's... let's not start the album with like already fixing things before you and make shitty compromises. So yeah, he went back home and recorded the entire album again. But that was the only time something like that ever happened. I think it's also good when you record your guitars by yourself and you know with which engineer you're gonna mix. I think why not just drop a line, say like, hey, can you just review,
check my DI, yeah.
Just like it takes like 5 minutes just to see like, hey, is it okay or not? And then you can give the green light. That's something I sometimes do, and I think that's not a bad idea. It's like some lifeline.
Yeah, absolutely. I do that. I always request a DI tracks when I mix something.
Yeah.
I also prefer actually getting some real tones as well, and not just DIs.
As a reference, that you know that what's going on, yeah.
Right.
And I mean, of course, my favorite solution is like if a band has like a very distinct sound and an individual sound, and it's their sound, then I like to use it.
Sure.
Like if they recorded something that sounds great, then I don't just reamp everything by default. That's the most wonderful situation, because I try to not repeat myself all the time, but nevertheless, if a band doesn't have any sound vision, then I just do the first thing that I like, and at some point I'm gonna start repeating myself. And I don't want to be one of these producers where you can immediately hear, that was done by Victor, that was done by V.Santura, and not by that band.
Exactly. But that is like the danger of especially younger guitarists out there just sending MIDI tracks for the drums and DI tracks for guitars and bass to someone like you or someone like me, and actually like putting all the important decisions into your hands. And I kind of refuse mixing stuff like that these days. I just say like, if you don't really have a vision of how you want to sound, if you can show me how you want to sound, what's the point? Don't you have like an aesthetic vision, you know? And I always encourage them to send me at least anything. Sometimes it actually sounds great, or it at least gives me some kind of inspiration, knowing like, okay, you want to sound super bright and cold, or something fat, or so, you know.
And I mean, it's not so hard to get like good demo sounds nowadays. Like people, when they have like a plugin, like whatever, you have all the neural DSP stuff, STL tones. It's not super expensive. Or a lot of people have the Quad Cortex or fractal audio stuff. So just make a preset or use a preset where you think like, okay, I like that sound, and even if I think, okay, I can actually do something better with my real amps, then at least I know where you're coming from and what your preference is. And I think that's a good thing to get some idea.
Just develop a taste and don't be afraid to show it, right?
Yeah.
And what about the performance? Like, what are the typical problems?
I think sometimes guitar players have a little bit the difficulty to judge themselves. Sometimes I notice that people maybe don't consider the actual intonation enough. So you hear like slight tuning issues. Often it also doesn't come from the player, or sometimes they tune their guitar correctly, but then it's like how they put their fingers on the strings. If they push too hard or pull too hard and then basically bend their strings out of intonation, that's something that I would realize when somebody does that, and I will tell them and also teach them maybe a little bit. Like, of course, they can't be like a teacher and like overstepping your boundaries in a way, but when they do certain things that I'm like holding my thumb over the first fret, so to just mute strings and something that you can't do alone. I mean, you can also put a tissue or like a hairband that you can put around the neck, stuff like that. But also sometimes I start a recording session and I realize, okay, there's intonation issues, and I just take the guitar and check for the setup. Are the octaves real octaves? Is that clean or not? And then it's like, oh God, so I first have to adjust the setup a little bit. So that's also something, if you don't know how to do it, then maybe there is somebody in your hometown who knows. So I think that's always a good idea. And also don't play your strings for 2 months and then start recording.
The advantage of recording guitars at home is that you can record anytime.
You can record anytime.
Right, you can record for weeks long or something and just record whatever, a riff a day or something, which is something that take the stress away from you compared to a recording session. On the other hand, it can make you lazy. I feel like it takes away the preparation. If somebody goes to the studio, so like, I have 5 days to record, he or she will usually be prepared. Fresh strings, everything's set up. Everybody's like prepped, and now we're going to the studio. It's like an official appointment. Everybody's excited, you know. Whereas, hey, can you record your guitars at home within the next 3 months? It's like you can be sure that the strings will be worn out on song number 8 compared to song number 1. It's just not. It doesn't have that. You know, that tension. That's how I feel. So there's pros and cons about.
And of course, like one very obvious pro for recording at home is the budget. Because even if you're prepared very well and you have to record some, I don't know, tech death, and it takes still realistically 10 days to track the guitars in the studio, and it costs you a couple of thousand, and if you do it at home and you just have to pay 1 studio day for reamping,
that's the main reason.
It's a very
right?
obvious thing, and it's probably
reason.
the main reason, And that's why I understand. I'm not angry with anybody who wants to spare the money. That's just how it is.
And like
that's the reality,
And we kind of like skipping the pain in the ass process of actually recording the
Actually,
guitars.
I mean, mixing is more fun.
It's just needed sometimes. But let's talk about gear. Favorite amp, if there is one, like high gain, chuga kind of.
I'm not sure if I do have one favorite amp. To be honest, I think I do have a favorite cabinet.
And that's the Engel?
Yeah, that's
Really?
my favorite,
Okay.
I mean, there are other great cabinets, but I think that is kind of my favorite cabinet.
The one I like the most was is it called XXL, like the big one?
Yeah, probably. I'm not even sure. I have the Pro, just the angled Pro with the 4 vintage 30s. Yeah.
I think it's 16 ohm vintage 30s, which makes them a little different. And wherever. I mean, it's always like... you get great tones. You even got, like, on the mixing course, he got some cool guitar tones with a 1960A cabinet from Marshall.
Yeah.
And that's not easy.
True. And I think I only got it sound good in the course because I did some crazy EQ movements, which I usually try to avoid nowadays. I try to record it so I only lead minimum EQ.
But if you want to learn how to make a shitty 1968 cabinet sound great with those terrible 75-watt speakers, check out the course below.
But talking about the fizziness of the Engel cabinet, I notice very often that when I compare it, like with, let's say, with a match EQ with other things, very often I see it always suggests pull 6.7 kilohertz.
Okay.
And sometimes I just go there by default.
Not 6.66? Almost.
You can't pull that out. That's something you have to push, of course.
Right. Don't pull the devil out of your tone, man. Right. But it's close, yeah. Okay. So that is the annoying frequency there, the magic frequency.
Sometimes I just make a narrow cut, 3 dBs or something, as like.
And then it also depends on how you mic. I mean, if you do a lot of Friedman stuff, it also, I think, pulls out some of the fizziness. I never Friedman myself, so maybe that's also like a reason for why you choose certain gear.
Like, I think when there was that Andy Sneap forum, like in the
early
2000s, there was that long thread about that Clayman sound, I think, like an In Flames album, where I think they used that cabinet and that mix setup. And I wanted to try it, and I was like, man, this works so well for me.
Okay, so that's how
so I don't want to say I ripped it off, but
fair enough.
It's a very good starting point for me. It's not what I do always, but it's my starting point. And I also like to have all my amps in the control room, and my cabinet is, of course, in the live room, because I don't really care how it sounds in the live room.
Same here.
Yeah, I just want to hear how does it sound over the speaker, over the mics, and over my monitors, and that's what matters to me. So I'm also not afraid to make the amp whatever loud. If it sounds cranked up super good and it's 180 dBs over there, I don't really care about it.
Yeah, sure.
It's not 180, but
I know that for Triptykon you guys are using the JZM 800s from Marshall, which also has like a very distinct tone, which is kind of refreshing, I think, and the song also sounds really gnarly in a nice way. But you said that the amp that you actually bought for yourself was the Engel Fireball, right?
That's true, but that's more regarding Arc Fortress.
Okay. And it doesn't matter, but I mean, your personal, you went to Thomann and actually, you chose your favorite amp, and that was the Engel, right?
I did, exactly. I mean, they have this amazing room there where you also have like all these switches where you can just like plug your guitar somewhere, and then it's like, okay, I want to hear that amp, and now this one, and just like.
And it's like 50 amps or something, or like endless.
At least I had like 10 amps or something that I considered I could do this. I mean, the advantage that I also had at that time was that exactly in that department there was a guy working that had been to my studio a couple of weeks before with his band. So I could, of course, go there and say like, hey, I called them a couple of days before and asked them if those amps are available, because I knew already what kind of stuff I wanted to try.
Yeah.
I brought my own PV6505 sort of as a reference, because that until that point that was kind of my favorite, and I thought like, can I get something better? And in the end I was torn between the Ritchie Blackmore and the Fireball. I mean, nowadays, like a while ago, I also had a Savage
120.
Yeah, the new one.
Yeah.
Which is also killer.
Yeah.
Love that amp. But
More,
at that time,
more raw sounding. I think this one sounds really, I wouldn't say polished, but like more modern and like not as raw as the Savage, which is it's a total matter of taste.
I do like Engel amps. They fit my style when I play, because it's a very precise sound, and it's like fast, and it also works for black metal for me, but it also works super well for low tuned, chunky, whatever, new metal stuff. So I think it's a great amp, but all the amps that I have here, of course, serve a certain purpose, and I like them all. I also love the Dietzel Herbert. I'm not a fan of the VH4 at all, to be honest. Doesn't do anything for me, but the Herbert is killer. Yeah,
it's closer to a rectifier, at least if you engage the mid-cut thing, for me, with like a really beefy low end and scoop. And like
honestly, a rectifier is the one of the things that I'm still missing. I don't have a proper rectifier, and again there's also the problem that some of them sound awesome, others
if you get a 2-channel, that's what I have. I have I always forget it. It's Revision F or something, serial number 800 something. But if you get like the old 2-channel version, I've never really heard a bad one.
Okay.
The 3-channel, there's nice ones. I think the early 3-channel were a little bit fizzy. I mean, no rectifier again really sucks, let's be honest. But I would go for the 2-channel. I think the only problem is I'm not the only one who knows. That makes them very expensive on the used market, right?
Yeah.
But they're great amps. I think also the rectifier for me is like the most, or maybe the amp with the most distinct character compared to any other of the typical high gain amps. It's like if I compare, I don't know, if I have an Engel and a Black Star and then the rectifier always sticks out.
Has that kind of growl.
Right. Growl and a massive low end that needs to be tamed by a tooth screamer, and like you said in the beginning, also needs to be tamed by proper playing, which brings us back again. Yeah.
Exactly, you need a different touch in the right hand with a rectifier than with a PV or Engel, I think. So I don't sound good over a rectifier, to be honest, because or at least like if I just plug myself into a rectifier, it's like, oh fuck, I have to readjust and probably have to play a while on that before I feel really comfortable with it, because I'm so used to playing with Fireball or PV, or of course also JCM 800, which is again different. But
that's very different. That was really cool. That inspired me actually to try one again. And you guys should try the course, right? If you want to hear that JCM 800 and check out all his amazing work. Check out his bands. I will check out the new Behemoth right now. Yeah. It's not released yet. Probably when this video comes out. There will be.
By the way, I also have a new band called Root Brain, and we're gonna have an EP out in January. Probably.
Third band.
Yes, but I mean second band now, because Dark Fortress basically split up in 2023.
Okay.
So we're not active anymore. We are also gonna have a live album on January 17th. So there's a lot of stuff happening now. But Dark Fortress is no more. We are dead. But
we're still gonna add links to the course, to Triptykon, to Dark Fortress, rest in peace, to his new band called
Root Brain,
and probably to a new Behemoth track where you can hear his wonderful guitar tones. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for watching. And leave a comment if you have any questions. I'm sure he's happy to answer them. That's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed the video, so we can see each other again. I see you in hell, motherfuckers. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.